peace in the Middle East? Let's ask Michael Oren. He's a senior fellow at the Shalem Center in Jerusalem, and Hussein Ibish, a senior fellow at the American Task Force on Palestine. Thank you both, gentlemen, for joining us. Mr. Ibish, tell me, clearly this would be the end of an era, but what does it mean for the prospects for peace?
Well, I think it's not going to make a huge difference. A lot of people on both sides like to blame individual personalities, so you hear a lot of rhetoric on the Israeli side that's tended to single out Yassir Arafat as a particular problem. You hear a lot of rhetoric on the Arab side and from Palestinians about Ariel Sharon. But I think, really, if you step back, this is a conflict between societies, between millions of people. It's been going on for about 100 years now. And I think, at the end of the day, it will be an end of an era. But, the day after Arafat dies, all the conditions that have made the conflict inevitable, the Israeli settlers on the one hand, the millions of Palestinians who are disenfranchised and not citizens of any state, the checkpoints, the wall, the extremist groups like Hamas, and the fact that there's no peace process in place, that will all still be there. So I don't think it's going to be a fundamental change. It will be a new political situation, but the fundamentals will be there, and they'll be the same, unfortunately.
Okay, Ambassador Oren, let me ask you, or Michael Oren, thank you for joining us. I wanted to ask you, clearly there will be a succession struggle. Could we end up with someone worse than Yassir Arafat?
Well, I think we have to first of all deal, Brenda, with the legacy that Arafat will leave behind him. That includes the 16 militias which he himself created in order to prevent a successor from emerging, in addition to Hamas, in addition to Islamic Jihad, in addition to the Islamic groups that are allied with Hezbollah in Lebanon. And they'll all be engaging this sort of pile-on, this struggle for power. And in the process, many of them will be trying to kill Jews to prove that they are good Palestinian leaders. And we have to see, ultimately, which one of these strongmen, which one of these warlords is going to emerge. Ultimately, we can't know at this time whether they're going to be good for Israel or bad for Israel. Ultimately, we're going to have to know whether this person will be able to sign on a dotted line and live up to any commitments they make under any agreement.
Hussein, there's clearly a fear that the outpouring into the streets will result in violence. What do you see as the prospects there?
No, I don't think so. I think that whatever happens is violence and chaos are likely to be contained, and there may be sporadic incidents as there are in any highly emotive situation in many parts of the world. But I think it'll be contained. I don't think, by the way, let me say that there'll be a single successor, and the leadership that's going to emerge is going to be a collective. It's going to be a group of people, I believe.
That can sometimes be more difficult, sir.
Sorry?
That can sometimes be more difficult to deal with in a peace process.
Yes, it could, but I think fundamentally the question is not, is the new Palestinian leadership good for Israel? The question is, does it serve the interests of the Palestinian people? And I think that, there is certainly a responsibility on the part of leading Palestinians in the mainstream secular movement, Fatah and the PA, etc., to come together and to work to promote this vision that almost everyone agrees with of a Palestinian state alongside Israel living in peace. That's what the Palestinians have been trying to achieve now for the past 10 years. And there's almost everyone agrees with that, except for Ariel Sharon and the Israeli government on one hand.
That certainly can be debated, sir. But let me just ask you about the money issue here, because clearly the lifeblood of any organization is money. Yassir Arafat wasn't seen to be a great fundraiser. Do you expect that the Palestinians may get more money funneled in now? First,
I think
Mr.
it's
Oren.
possible. Oh, sorry.
Let me ask Mr. Oren first.
Sure.
Mr. Oren?
Yes, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Let me just correct one little historical fallacy here. It's very important to note that well before Ariel Sharon, the government of Ehud Barak, a Labor prime minister, offered the a Palestinian state in all of the West Bank and Gaza and half of Jerusalem, and they turned it down then and went to war. This has nothing to do with Ariel Sharon.
Mr. Ibish, go ahead and respond.
All of the West Bank and Gaza. I mean, that's silly. That's flatly untrue. No one has ever claimed that. Definitely, there has never been an offer of all of the West Bank and Gaza. I do think at Taba in
there's an offer of 97% of the West Bank.
In January 2001, we were very close to an agreement, and there were good progress being made. That's why it was a tragedy that with the election of Ariel Sharon, the negotiations got broken off. With regard to the money, let me say I do think it's possible that if a kind of collective Palestinian Palestinian leadership with multiple people fulfilling different functions that Arafat has performed emerges, and I think there's a good chance of that,
yes,
that there may be a more successful effort to get funding for the Palestinian Authority from Europeans, from Americans, from international aid agencies,
all right,
etc.
gentlemen.
And that would be a good thing for everybody.
Gentlemen,
here again, we're up against this. We're up against
I'm sorry to cut you off.
deep historical fallacy here.
Okay, thank you. I'm so sorry. This could go on for hours, as we know, and we will have you on again.
Brenda.
Thank you both very much.
It.
Straight ahead on this edition of Your World, are we